some of these nice days that we're having here in the middle of the winter is a good time to prepare your asparagus bed for next spring. Asparagus is a good crop for Oklahoma gardens. It's adapted throughout most of the state, but since it's a perennial crop, and because when you put this crop into the garden, it's going to be there for 10 or 15 years, then you want to give some really special thought and consideration on soil preparation and being sure that you do the things right before you plant the crop. Asparagus does well in a wide range of soils, but it certainly prefers a sandy, loamy soil or a soil high in organic matter. And if you've got an area in your garden that is relatively high in clay content or a tight soil like we have here, then about 2 months before you plant your asparagus, you may want to get out and dig a trench such as we've dug here, or just dig individual planting holes and fill this in with some sort of an organic matter and do some other soil amendments so that the soil will be in good shape in time to plant next spring. Now in the garden here, I've gone ahead and dug a trench about 8 to 10 inches deep, and we're filling this in with manure and with compost. And this is going to give us adequate time for this manure and compost to go ahead and decompose more so that when we get ready to plant our asparagus in here in February or early March, we'll have a nice, well-prepared soil. Another tip that you might want to think about in planting asparagus in the garden, or when you plant any perennial crops for that matter, not only asparagus but also strawberries and blackberries and some of the other perennial crops, is to put these in an area of your garden sort of to the side, an area where they're not going to be in the way when you're not utilizing that crop, and you won't have to continue to be moving around them if you're trying to plant the other parts of the garden. So we've put these into one edge of the garden and have all of our perennials here together. Now, asparagus is one crop that also can tolerate higher pHs than some of our other crops can. And so if you have your soil tested and you find that the pH of the soil is below 6.5 or so, you may want to add some lime to bring this up. Now is a good time also to add lime at the same time you're preparing the soil or supplying the soil with organic matter. Asparagus can stand a pH up to about 6.8 to 7. It can also stand a little higher salt content than can some of the other vegetable crops in the garden. And so you see it can tolerate some more adverse conditions than some of our other crops can. In fact, this might be one place that you would want to put some of your wood ashes. Sue talked about using wood ashes in the garden a few weeks ago, and the asparagus bed with a limited quantity or amount of wood ashes would be a good place to utilize those. So when I've got this trench or this hole filled with my organic matter, then I want to come in and just rake the soil back over it. Allow this plenty of time then before planting to go ahead and decompose, and this will really put this soil in good shape when I get ready to plant. Then next spring, when I want to plant my asparagus, I can come back in, open this furrow up, mix the organic matter with the soil a little bit more, and have a real good, well-prepared bed here for asparagus planting. Well, in speaking of asparagus, let me share a few other thoughts and ideas with you. It's not going to be too long until we need to go in and knock down these old asparagus tops. We'll probably do these in about 2 weeks because we've gotten several good hard freezes on them now. And they've begun to die down, and we can go ahead and knock these down. One of the interesting things about asparagus is that at this time of the year you can really tell the male from the female plants. And asparagus does have male and female plants. The female plant is the plant that has the red berries on it. And usually the female plant is not quite as productive as the male plants because they use a lot of their food storage or their food reserve to produce berries and the reproductive structures here in the seeds. And so if you're planting asparagus and you want to go out and get asparagus crowns, you may find that in some stores they're actually selected for all male crowns. And these are going to be the ones that give you the largest, most productive spears. There will be the plants then as they produce, such as this one, that do not have any berries on them. And if you're wanting to move asparagus in your garden or take your old row and divide those plants up, You can also do that pretty quickly now. Anytime that we know that the asparagus has really hardened off well with several hard freezes, we can go in and lift out some of those crowns. If you're going to be moving an old bed, then you may want to take special note to those plants and move only the male plants or those without the berries. Now we've dug a crown here just to give you some idea of the size and the weight of these things. This is a crown here that has been in the ground for about 5 to 6 years, and actually I've already removed part of it, so it was a really large crown. Now when you get ready to move your asparagus, and let me emphasize that the proper time to really plant asparagus is in February or March, or about 2 months later than right now, but you can go ahead and move some of these old crowns now if you wish. But when you do this, you will dig the crowns up like this, and then we can break those apart and separate them by some of their natural dividing spaces there, and plant just that portion of the crown then with the little spears or the that are beginning to show there into the soil, much like this. We'll probably be giving you some instructions next February, March on how to plant asparagus, but now is the time to be out there to be thinking about preparing that soil, because as I mentioned, asparagus is a pretty crop. It'll be in the ground for 12 to 15 years, giving you adequate to actually very excellent yield in some parts of the state. And so the time that you spend in preparing that soil now before planting will certainly pay off in the future.